What's up, guys? My name's Cody, and this is another UFC betting breakdown, this time for UFC Vegas 32. And we have TJ Dillashaw making his comeback against Corey Sandhagen in what's probably going to be a number one contenders fight. You could argue Dillashaw doesn't deserve it after being 2 years off due to the drug suspension, but whether you like it or not, it's probably going to be a number one contender fight. Corey definitely deserves it. And so definitely a lot riding on that fight. Some other good fights on this card that I'm looking forward to. Before we get into that, last week we did have another profit. We missed Benitez by decision and Gamrot by decision. Those were both half a unit plays, but we did get Morzad by decision, half a unit. A parlay between Lemos and Rodriguez for 1 unit, and then Islam versus Moises does not go to decision, minus 115 for 2 units. So another profitable night. Glad I scoped that line because it's not that I was so confident it wasn't going to go to decision. I was pretty dang confident. But, Islam versus Moises, minus 115 over 5 rounds. I just thought the pace they fought out wouldn't let them go 5 rounds. And for almost pick-em odds, I took that. So another good week. Not perfect, but still profitable, so I'll take it. And, let's get into this card now. We got some good fights on this. Before we do that, make sure you leave a like on the video. Leave a subscribe. That always helps a lot. Turn post notifications on. I never say that one, but click the bell because then you can see when my video drops. Some of you guys hit me up on Twitter when I drop it a little late. I don't have like a set time yet. Usually Wednesday night, Thursday morning. So the bell will help you out there because I'm not the most organized with all this. I am working on that though. But with all that being said, let's get into it. We got some good fights on this card that I'm looking forward to, so let's get into them. First fight of the night. This is going to be one that, even though I do think if you got on it early, there was value, but at this point, there's not really any value to me, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But you got Diana Belbita taking on Hannah Goldie, and we got these odds are actually wrong now because Belbita at this point is about plus 115. If you could have sniped her at plus 155, I think there is value because Hannah Goldie, only 6 fights. And the big thing with Belbita is if you're going to beat her, you got to take her down. You got to, she had 4 of her 5 or 6 losses are submission losses, and 3 of those being by the armbar, including that loss to Jojo. I know everybody's kind of not very high on Belbita these days, but I do think that, if you could have got her at that price, there was some serious value. Now it's at almost, even odds. It's just such a lower level fight that I'm going to go ahead and stay off of it, but I just feel like Belbita, she's going to have 3 inches of height, 7.5 inch reach advantage, and again, you always hear me say reach and height isn't an advantage unless you know how to use it. You can actually make being the shorter fighter an advantage if you use it right. But, I just feel like in this fight it's going to play out mostly on the feet. Belbita's just going to chip away at her and use her reach, use her height. I don't think Hannah Goldie has the wrestling or the grappling that most of Belbita's opponents that beat her do have. Not that there's world beater grapplers, but Hannah's just I just don't see her going out there with with a heavy wrestling game plan. And, obviously you can see the picture. She's not a weak girl, Could she maybe get Belbita down if they get along the cage or something? For sure. And maybe then the height will actually be an advantage for her. But I just feel like overall I see this fight playing out mostly on the feet, and Belbita's going to out-volume her. She's just a better striker on the feet, and that reach and height I feel like is going to actually be an advantage to her because I just see this being like a kickboxing sparring match for 3 rounds. So give me Diana Belbita by decision. Maybe you can get some more value on her by playing her by decision. I don't think she'll finish Hannah Goldie, who has shown she's pretty tough. But I do think she should be able to get a unanimous decision here. So give me Belbita by decision, but no play on it for me. I wish if I would have got it at plus 155, even though I don't like betting lower level women's MMA. Obviously they're in the UFC, they're great fighters, but I mean like lower level as far as the UFC is concerned, because it's high variance. But at plus 155, I think there's value. If you got that, you're good. But at almost even odds, I'd rather just stay off of it. Next up, we got Sijara Eubanks taking on Elise Reed. And Sijara going down from 135 which is definitely going to be interesting to see. I want to see the weigh-ins for this one because Sajara is a big favorite on this card. And when you look at the card, I do think she's one of the more safer picks, but I mean, at least she should be. But the reason that I haven't parlayed her yet is, typically you got size and you got a wrestling advantage. Then, that's the the recipe for success a lot of times. But at least a solid 75% of the time it seems. But and I know she got that 6-6 record, but she's fought much tougher competition. Even some of these losses are more impressive than anything Reed's really done. I mean, Pandy Kenzad, Caitlin Vieira, Betch Correa, Aspen Ladd again, Caitlin Chukagian. I mean, those are all like legitimate UFC fighters. Whereas Elise Reed, she really has not fought anybody. I mean, nobody that you would know. She at least had some good amateur background, which I do like to see. But as far as like the level of competition, definitely much lower than Sajara. And she has some atomweight fights. She's actually coming up. She's fought atomweight. She's fought 115. Now they're fighting here. It says bantamweight there, but that's not true. It's at 125. And I'm really interested to see if Sajara can make weight. Because if she can make weight and not look like she's dying, then I think she has a very good chance to go out here and at least wrestle Reed for the first 2 rounds and get a pretty easy win. But most likely by decision. It just scares me because we've seen Eubanks miss weight at 135 and look like, she didn't have a ton more weight to lose. So, I'm interested to see if she can make the weight and make it successfully and not look like she's on death's door. But, definitely have to go Eubanks. Got to go Eubanks by decision. It's just I'm a little scared about the weight cut. So I haven't made the bet yet, but I do think that she is possibly parlay material, especially considering again still lower level women's MMA, a little higher than the last fight, but at least as far as Sajara is concerned, but still scary because you still and there's been a lot of shit going on in Sajara's personal life lately that I'm not even gonna comment on because I just don't know the facts. But you do have to kind of think about that and hope that wouldn't be throwing her off her game. If you're betting her, that is. But I am going to take Sajara Eubanks by decision. And let's move on to the next fight. Next up, we got Julio Arce taking on Andre Ewell. And this fight's going to be at 135, where we've seen Arce up at 45. Ewell, he is going to, like in almost all his fights, he's going to have that. Even though he's only 5'8", he has a 75-inch reach, which is very long. I always think he's much taller than he is because of just the way his body's shaped. But, we've seen Ewell have some problems like Gutierrez with the leg kicks and just being a little bit sharper on the feet. And, Irwin Rivera, it's like these are split decisions where he's outlanding them by so much. But a lot of people thought Martinez won that fight, including me. And he's outlanding these guys, but he just doesn't have a lot of pop on his shots. And he doesn't, even if he did, he doesn't seem like he really even tries to use full power. He's more of just like a pitter-patter on the outside, throw kicks. The Achilles heel to him has been eating leg kicks and being taken down. And I do feel like Julio, whereas I don't think he's going to come out with like a super heavy leg kick game, at least it's not something I would bet on. I do think that's going to be something that he's going to be, he's been fighting for a long time. He's been in the UFC a decent amount of time. You would think he's fought some tough guys. Beat Dan Ige, Daniel Timur, Julian Erosa. Those are good wins. Head kicked Julian Erosa, slept him. Submitted Daniel Timur. And then even lost a split decision in his last fight to Hakeem Dawodu up at 145. And those are impressive wins and losses. Dude, he's only 31, but he is he's a veteran in the game at this point. And you would think he's gonna know the game plan to beat Ewell's kind of out. Sorry, that last name always throws me off. We've broke down his fights so many times, but I just feel like the game plan's out on him. You got to mix in those leg kicks. You got to, he's not the strongest guy in the pocket, and this is a guy who used to fight much bigger, stronger guys in Julio Arce. You just got to think he's gonna be smart enough to come out here, kick the legs, work in some takedowns, which I think he can take down Ewell. And because of that, I think the pricing is pretty accurate. I think Julio is the rightful favorite, and definitely the rightful favorite. But I would give him like a solid, minus 160, minus 170. So maybe you could say there's a little value there. If you're gonna bet Andre, you bet him by decision because he's not finishing Julio. So if you want to bet Andre and you want to get because I do think there's a chance he could win the decision. If he can avoid the takedowns, and he's gonna throw decent enough volume to where, if he can avoid the big shots and stuff, at least most of the takedowns, you're probably looking at a pretty close decision. So, if you take Ewell, I think you get even better underdog prices by taking by decision. But I'm gonna go Julio. I'm gonna go Julio by decision most likely. But he is I wouldn't play a prop on him because I do think there's multiple paths to victory for him. But I would just take maybe you parlay him if you're pretty confident. I'm not gonna play any of these first three fights, but I am gonna take Julio Arce by decision, and I think he is the rightful favorite, and the pricing's pretty on that one. Next up, we got Adrian Yanez taking on Randy Costa, and as everybody's been saying, why isn't this fight on the main card? I agree. I wish it was on the main card because I do think this is a banger. If y'all are on MMA Twitter, like some of us MMA nerds, you've probably seen the back and forth. It's not a heated back and forth for sure. You got a lot of memes they're sending each other, and I haven't seen a lot of it, but I have been seeing it here and there because it's hard to miss. But they've been trying to push for this fight, and I respect it because both these guys are dangerous fighters. I mean, you lose to one of these guys, it's not like you're gonna get grinded out, wrestled or something. You're probably waking up at the lights if you lose to one of these guys. I mean, Randy Costa, you look at his career, and his one loss was when somebody could extend him a little, and it was only to the second round. Minute 12 into the second. All these other fights, 46 seconds, 11 seconds, 1 minute, 10 seconds, 42 seconds, 2 minutes, 40 seconds. I mean, this guy he's kill or be killed immediately. And, even in his amateur career, his 2 first-round knockouts and a doctor stoppage in the second. If you count his amateur career, that's, what? 10 fights, all of them finished, including his loss. And, he's training over Sanford MMA now, which is pretty, definitely a good look, got some top guys over there. Trained a little with Lozon. I don't think he's training with him anymore, but I think that's where he started out. And but his opponent, man, Adrian Yanez, definitely a tough guy. One of the guys here that came from LFA, had a pretty decent amateur run there too, and then early regional career. And when we first broke down one of his fights against Brady Huang, even at 11-1, that was a pretty decent. None of us were super surprised to go in there and slept him in under a minute. But Victor Rodriguez, I know he's an Alaskan FC guy, and I did bet against him in this fight and against Bruno Silva. But to see the way that Yanez just completely picked him apart, it was impressive. And then he got the nice step up against Gustavo Lopez, and they did take him to the third, but knocked him out with a clean right hand. And Yanez has been looking. A lot of people call him Little Masvidal, or Baby Masvidal. He looks like a younger Masvidal, and I do think his boxing's super legit. His striking is legit. I do think if it gets into the second, third round, he's gonna have a big advantage. Mainly just because Randy, we just haven't seen it yet. Whereas all this guy's, every single one of his 6 wins is to happen in the first round. So it's hard to be to just know what he's going to be able to look like, how much he's going to be able to carry over when we have not seen it. And the one time he got extended, he lost that fight. So it is a little interesting. I mean, I do think in the first couple minutes he's going to be really dangerous like he always is. But if Yanez can get out of that first round, can extend and let alone get to the third, I mean, you got to think that Randy's going to start to slow down. I mean, he just doesn't have the experience there. And, I mean, Yanez hasn't fought the highest caliber guys yet, but he is the more experienced guy. He's fought, a couple decently tough guys, and I do think the line's pretty accurate. If you could have got on Yanez when the line was flipped a little bit, I think there was value. But at this point, it's just like I see a lot of people like parlaying him. Man, that's dangerous to me. There's fights on this card that are less dangerous, and I have been tempted because I do feel like this is a spot where I like Randy Costa, but typically I bet against these type of guys who they either got to knock you out in that first round or they're probably gonna lose, at least in every case we've seen so far. And the second they get a nice decent step up, someone I think is pretty durable like Yanez is, I typically like to bet against them. But I don't know, I just feel like this fight is just going to be a firefight, and that especially in that beginning. The only thing I'm a little worried about is because of all the memeing and shit, it's like hopefully they haven't become a little too friendly where they're like, man, I don't even really want to knock this guy out, and they kind of kickbox spar. But I'm hoping, that doesn't happen, that doesn't affect it. And as long as Adrian can withstand that first, round, let alone round and a half, I really feel like he's going to take over. And I'm going to take Yanez by late second round knockout. But, I mean, I'm staying off of it for now because I do feel like I thought about the under 1.5, but it's already juiced as it should be. I don't know. I think I'm just going to sit back and watch this one as a fan, but I'm going to take Yanez by knockout late in the second round. Next up, we have another fun fight, man. Ian Heinisch taking on Nasruddin Imavov. And I really liked this guy, Imavov. I mean, obviously we've had some mixed results so far since we've been really watching him. Hadn't seen him until he fought Jordan Williams, but I did a lot of tape on him for that fight. And then again for that Phil Haas fight. And, I did like this guy's style. Even though he's more of a striker, unlike, a lot of these Dagestan guys. And it just seems like, he really did have a lot of potential. And, I mean, he's only 25 years old, so he's still young in his career. But I just feel like... man, in that Phil Haas fight, it was really disappointing. I know he did start coming back late in the fight, but there was no real. It just seemed like he was a little too accepting of just being. I mean, I know Phil Haas is an absolute tank of a man and a good wrestler himself, and he's not easy to separate on when he has you on the cage. But I just feel like anything he could do, Ian Heinisch can replicate, man, because Ian Heinisch, he doesn't have the greatest wrestling. Maybe Haas doesn't have or has better wrestling than Heinisch. Maybe Heinisch can't replicate, that aspect as much, but he's got a much better gas tank than Phil Haas. He's got much better striking. Even though his striking might be pretty basic, it's still his defense is pretty solid. And I know you're seeing these losses here, but look who he's fighting. Kelvin Gastelum, Jared Mearshart, Omari Akhmedov, Derek Brunson, Antonio Carlos Jr., Cesar Ferreira. I mean, Marcus Perez early on in his LFA career. He's fought some tough guys. And then when you look at him, Imavov, Phil Haas, which obviously he lost that one close fight, but I thought he lost even though I had money on him. And then Jordan Williams. And then, before then it's just, I mean, these aren't bums, but... it's just a different level. He is over at the MMA Factory. I'm sure he's training hard. I mean, there are both these guys are at good gyms. And you could argue, Imavov 25, he's going to be making, the bigger leaps between fights. But I just feel like this is such a step down for Ian that I do feel like, I could have seen this line wider. Minus 200 plus. Because minus 200, minus 220. Because... yeah, he's taken a couple losses recently, but man, getting taken down and having trouble taking down Omari Akhmedov and Kelvin Gastelum. That's a different level of wrestling. And Derek Brunson too. Mavov, yeah, he's Dagestanian, but I feel like he can be taken down. I feel like Heinisch could put him on the cage, grind him. He's gonna have the better gas tank. At least like if he can keep it in his realm. I mean, Ian Heinisch has just fought much higher caliber guys. Factory X gonna be on point, giving him a good game plan. I just feel like this is his fight to lose. So, man, I'm looking for another like a second leg for a 2-leg parlay with Ian Heinisch. I haven't figured out how exactly I want to do it yet, but I do think I will. I'm going to find a whoops. No, not that. I am gonna find a way to put a little. I wanted to see what bets I had open already because I'll make sure I didn't miss. But I do think that what I'm probably gonna end up doing is parlaying them with the over for some of those ladies fights, like the Sajara fight or that Miranda Maverick Macy Barber fight. Spoiler alert for later, because I don't think there's a lot of safe picks from this week. But I do think, at least unless their line is a little too wide for my liking, but I do think that there's a couple overs on this card that I can parlay up because I really am confident in Ian Heinisch. Especially for the line. He's one of the ones I'm more confident in on the card. I do think there's a lot of dogs with a chance on this card, so I'm going to go Ian Heinisch. I'm going to go Ian Heinisch by decision. Maybe you could do that. You could take a by decision prop. But I think there's a chance he knocks him out too. Some ground and pound. Gets a TKO. But I'm going to take Heinisch by decision. And I'm going to throw him in a couple of 2-fighter parlays. Next up, we got another banger with Punahele Soriano taking on Brendan Allen. And, man, I'm not going to lie. Like, I know I've been seeing some people on Brendan Allen. I've been seeing some people saying, like, not to bet this fight and stuff like that. Some people I respect. Man, when I first saw this, this was the first bet I made on this card, like, immediately. When I saw this fight, I immediately fucking put some money down. Luckily, there's still time for that line to come down. But I already have 2 units on Soriano straight up. And I thought about taking him by knockout. We'll see when those props drop. But, watching Allen's fights, I thought he had a good chance against Sean Strickland. And, I did have him in a parlay against Carl Roberson, but, he impressed in that fight for sure. Got the round 1 submission right at the end, and that was definitely impressive, even though Roberson has pretty bad submission defense and just grappling in general. But we've seen, the Sean Strickland fight wasn't shooting takedowns. He was getting pieced up on the feet. Sean Strickland was taking him down. In the Kyle Dawkins fight, he gassed completely. The Tom Breeze fight, okay, that was a good matchup for him. Tom Breeze came in really shitty in that fight. I don't know what he was doing there, like pulled guard, and I don't know what that was, man. That was crazy. Kevin Holland fight, even though he won that, he was gassing too, and I don't know. Before then, not a lot of top, competition. And now he's fighting Soriano, who does have some question marks. Definitely has some question marks for sure. We got to think, in the Jamie Pickett fight, he did start to slow down. And hasn't fought before his UFC career. I mean, Patti, this was a solid win at the time. But, first round too, and you like to see it mixing up with a submission. But before then, not a lot of people you would recognize. Did have 4 amateur fights as well, which is nice to see. Not that that's a ton, but, better than nothing. So he does, if you want to count that, he has 12 fights. But definitely not as much experience as Brendan Allen. But, it's just that styles make fights, man. And I really feel like him, especially like at this line, there's a lot of value, man. Because, man, Brendan Allen, he does have good jiu-jitsu. We saw it in his last fight. What he doesn't have is good wrestling. And a lot of times he's not even shooting takedowns like he should. And you see that problem with a lot of jiu-jitsu guys. And I love jiu-jitsu. I've been training jiu-jitsu for almost 7 years. But like, it's a big part of what I do almost on a daily basis. I train in an MMA gym, and a big portion of our stuff is like jiu-jitsu and grappling. Jiu-jitsu and wrestling is a big part of it. But if you don't have the takedowns, you can't implement your grappling. Do I think he has a grappling advantage on Soriano? Yes, once it hits the mat. But Soriano has even though he was Division III and people want to shit on that, he was a Division III champ. And on any given day, a lot of times, they say them Division III boys can give Division II, even Division I, a run for their money. Sometimes you see those guys transfer to other schools and they can do the same shit they were doing at their Division III schools. So, don't be so quick to shit on it just because you think that, it's only Division III, because that definitely still means something. And his build, like, not just like his frame and his actual physical build, but just his style too. Like, he's got a ton of power. He's gonna have the lower hips, the lower base. Brendan Allen, his height and reach, see, it can be a disadvantage, and a lot of times when you're trying to wrestle, it is a disadvantage. If you can get in on the clinch, you can get some body locks going, then you can turn it into an advantage. But it's tough to get under the hips of a shorter, stronger, guy with a lot of power, with a wrestling background. I think this fight's gonna be on the feet for a good amount. If Brendan Allen can get him down, I think, we could be in some danger. But Soriano's one of these scrappy Hawaiian dudes, very durable. His gas tank, there's a question mark. His jiu-jitsu defense, there's a question mark. If Brendan Allen can get on his legs, could he do the same thing as last fight? It's possible, for sure. We haven't seen that aspect of Soriano's game yet. But I have a feeling that his wrestling is going to be enough, and to keep the fight on the feet, maybe even enough to where Allen just respects it too much and does it what we've seen him do before and just really only shoots once or twice. And, that might be all it takes. Soriano, I think he's going to catch him. I think he can even catch him early. I've seen some people playing props, first round, second round. I think there's a good chance of that. And I know we put question marks on Soriano's gas tank, but there's question marks on Allen's gas tank. We saw him gas out in that last fight. Now he was taking a beating. We saw him gas out in that Dawkins fight too. We've seen him gas out in the Holland fight. We see this guy get tired a lot, and I know he does carry a pretty fast pace, and that could be why. But I feel like, if he is able to take Soriano to the later rounds, I think he could be get just as tired. So I'm gonna take Soriano. I'm gonna take Soriano first round knockout. Maybe Allen survives that first round, but even if he does, I think Soriano keeps it on the feet and is gonna land the bigger, more impressive shots. And if you can't put him away, win those first 2 rounds. So give me Soriano by knockout, and I do have some money already on him. 2 units straight. Next up, we got Mickey Gall taking on Jordan Williams. And Jordan Williams, somebody that we've seen fight a lot at 185. He did fight at 170 before, but apparently because he's a diabetic, he can't cut weight, they would always say. We would have to hear it on the Contender Series. So he was fighting guys much bigger than him, and that was the case in that Imavov fight. We've just seen that he's just not filled out for that 185 division. At 170 though, I do feel like, he, as long as he can make the weight safely, is another one I want to see the weigh-in for. He's going to have some advantages. I think he's a better striker than Mickey Gall on the feet, and I think he's a better wrestler too. It's kind of a case of the last fight where I feel like Mickey Gall will have the jiu-jitsu advantage if he gets it there. But not that I think, even though I do think his jiu-jitsu's been a little exaggerated, he's not Jacare Souza, This isn't like, Hony Barcelos or something. This is, people are acting like this is like a world-class black belt. Like, No, I mean he's got good jiu-jitsu, but it's not like if he gets Jordan down, it's just gonna be done. Like I don't think that's the case, and I think it's gonna be tough for Mickey Gall to get Jordan Williams down. I mean, he couldn't get Mike Perry down, and I mean Jordan Williams, I feel like he's bigger than Mike Perry. He might have his wrestling's at least pretty. At least you got to say it's probably about on par to Mike Perry's. And you had Mike Perry taking Gall down and making it look easy. I just feel like, man, Gall just have good jiu-jitsu, but his striking is not good. He was brought in with the CM Punk shit. You know, he was signed at 1-0. He just that they signed him to fight CM Punk. I just don't think that his skills are enough, man. They say he was signed too early. He wasn't ready, and now they just don't have people on the roster that are on his level. Like he's just that. I don't know. He's up against it, man. In general, even though I do think if there's somebody you could beat on the roster, not that Jordan Williams is just a bum, but like, is there a way? Yeah, there's a chance if he can get Jordan Williams down, but that's a big if, man. I just have not seen the wrestling look good enough, and the striking is not good enough, and the gas tank is not very good. I just feel like Jordan Williams is gonna keep it on the feet, sprawl and brawl, land bigger shots. I don't know if he'll knock Mickey Gall out, but I think TKO is on the table. But I'm going to take Jordan Williams by decision. Sprawl and brawl, keeps it on the feet, lands bigger shots. Hopefully the cut with his diabetes doesn't mess him up too much and he can go 3 rounds. But I'm going to take Jordan by decision. But the knockout is definitely possible. Next up, we got Macy Barber taking on Miranda Maverick. And, man, this is a fight where, you know, I don't see a lot of value on this fight, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time breaking it down. But we got Macy Barber coming in off 2 straight losses, you know. One was that Roxanne Modafferi fight where she blew out her knee. And, that's 3. I'm sorry, boys. You know, she didn't look so great in that fight, but, you know, you could chalk that up to the blown out knee. And then Alexa Grasso, you know, Alexa fought a great fight in that fight. You know, she's a good boxer, sharp, straight punches. She was beating Macy Barber to the punch, and, you know, you saw Macy Barber has a lot of heart. She's definitely super tough. She stayed in the fight, and she definitely started to, you know, make it, you know, pretty competitive towards the end. But, you know, Miranda Maverick, she's only 1 year older, and I really do feel like the sky's the limit for her, too. You know, Macy's gotten a lot of hype, but I feel like Miranda, she really, man, she might be the bigger prospect in my eyes as of right now. She had a nice big old amateur career. 7-1 finished it out, and, you know, 2 decision losses, but other than that, even 2 exhibition matches that she won as well. And, you know, hasn't fought the toughest competition. You know, her last 3, Pearl Gonzalez, Liana Jojua, and Jillian Robertson. But she's looked good, man. She might not have as much power as Macy Barber, but I think she has the more versatile striking. You know, she can mix it up with her kicks a little better. She, you know, she stays very defensively sound typically, and I mean, her defense definitely seems to be getting better as her fights go on too, which typically is how it goes, especially with young fighters, like fighters that start at a young age. They're offensive minded, and then the defense comes around later. And I just feel like, you know, Miranda, I feel like she can keep the fight on the feet for the most part, and as long as she can just keep her volume up, I think she, you know, just going to be able to outland Macy and just be the better striker on the feet. If there's some grappling exchanges, I think Miranda, if Macy tries to, you know, kind of come forward and rush her, put her on the cage, I feel like Miranda could reverse the position, put Macy on the cage. You know, I think she, man, this might be the first fight where, at least that I've seen, where Macy's not going to have a strength advantage. She might have a power in her hands, like, advantage there. But I think Miranda might be the stronger girl. And, you know, even though Macy's a little taller and, you know, Miranda's not huge by any means, but I do feel like, you know, she can be able to match Macy's strength. And She just seems pretty versatile, pretty good everywhere. So I'm gonna take Miranda. I'm gonna take Miranda by decision, and I think she's a rightful favorite. I think minus 150 is pretty accurate, so I'm gonna stay off that. Um, I'm still looking at some of these plays, but I'm gonna stay off that for now because I do feel like that's priced at about right. But next up, we got Darren Elkins taking on Derek Minner, and we got Darren Elkins 1-4 in his last 5. Derek Minner 4-1. And but if you look at the level of competition, you got Elkins. He beat Eduardo Garagori in his last one, domination, just bad stylistic matchup for Eduardo. And before then, it was Nate Landwehr, Ryan Hall, Ricardo Lamas, and the champ Alexander Volkanovski. Even before then, it was beating Michael Johnson, beating Dennis Bermudez, Mirsad Bektic with a crazy comeback, Chaz Kelly. Some tough guys for sure. And lost to Jeremy Stevens, Chad Mendez. He's Charles Oliveira actually beat Dwayne Ludwig, but it was ankle injury. He's been fighting the who's who. He's been fighting some top guys. And if you're not UFC caliber, he's going to beat you. And Derek Minner, I know in his last fight, he was able to, kind of, everybody always says, oh, if he doesn't get that early finish, he's done. But in his last fight, he's got cardio now. I just have a hard time believing that. I know he's trained over at Glory, which is one of my favorite gyms right now in MMA. But I know he's only 31, but he has a lot of fights under his belt. And I just feel like, man, that fight played out like that because Charles Rosa doesn't have good takedown defense. Charles Rosa was a little too just acceptant to be on his back. He's one of those type of jiu-jitsu guys where he's a little too comfortable there, but it's like you're losing the fight, man. And that TJ Laramie fight, I even said in my breakdown, the only way Laramie loses this fight is if he shoots in the first minute or two and gets put in that fucking Minner guillotine. Because one thing Minner can do great is a guillotine. Dude's got a fire guillotine, and you just cannot just be shooting. Darren Elkins is going to be way too... I'll be shocked if he makes the same mistake. He's a veteran. He's smart. He might not fight like it always, a.k.a. he's called the damage, but I think his fight IQ will be a little too high to go do what TJ Laramie did and put himself right in Minner's best submission. Other than that, it's just if Minner doesn't finish you early, he just falls off the table typically. And I understand that he's training with Glory. He might be, having a new fire in his heart. Maybe that's gonna help him out. But I just feel like Darren Elkins he's a veteran. He's gonna be able to stay out of these submissions. And, the strike is going to be pretty close. I feel like Elkins can just mix in a couple takedowns. He should be smart to do them at the end of rounds, especially in the first round. In the second and third, I don't think Minner's going to be as dangerous with submissions, and Elkins can be a little bit more, he can go to the wrestling a little earlier in the round. And I think that's what Elkins is going to do. I think he's a live dog. And honestly, he's one of my favorite underdogs on this card. I don't know if I want to play him yet, but I kind of want to see the weigh-ins. There's a lot of fights on this card I want to see the weigh-ins for, but I'm gonna go Darren Elkins. I'm gonna go Darren Elkins by decision, but it should be a fun fight, man. I just think he needs to survive that first 3-4 minutes because as long as he does, I just still feel like. Just because he went the full distance last fight doesn't mean that Minner all of a sudden has a gas tank. I just think styles make fights. So give me Elkins by decision. And let's get into the next one. We got Kyler Phillips taking on Julian Paiva. And Paiva, man, this guy's pretty good. I mean, he's coming up. He was fighting at flyweight. He's coming up to bantamweight. And he's fighting a strong bantamweight in Kyler Phillips. And I do think that could be pretty important because, and when you're fighting Zalgas is a small guy, man. Kyler Phillips is a much bigger guy. And Zalgas was able to take him down. And I thought Zalgas won that fight. And, when you're fighting Bontarin and Kai Kara Francis, he's a pretty decently sized flyweight. But, these guys are just much smaller. And Kyler Phillips, I know he only has 10 fights, but, he impressed a lot in that Song Yadong fight, man. Being able to go in there and still execute his game plan against somebody who's fought a lot of the toughest guys in the division. And these are bantamweights. I get that, he only has 10 fights. He hasn't fought a lot of known guys. Paiva's still fought the tougher guys. But I feel like, like I said earlier, typically if you can have that wrestling advantage and you can have a size advantage, especially if you have the wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and just grappling in general and the size advantage, it's tough, man. And I do think Paiva can land more volume. If he can keep it on the feet, he can land more volume. He's got the more, explosive, dangerous striking. Even though, Kyler's been, he's pretty dangerous on the feet, too. He's no chump on the feet. But, I do think at the end of the day, Phillips going to be smart enough to do what he's got to do and mix in those takedowns, put Paiva on his back, because Paiva doesn't seem like he has the greatest get-up game. I feel like if Phillips gets on top of him, he's going to be able to control him. Submission could be open. And I just feel like Paiva is just going to utilize his... Phillips is going to use his grappling, and I think it's going to be a tough fight for Paiva. I do think that the line is a little wide because I've seen minus 250 for a guy with only 10 fights. I get Paiva's coming up and he's fighting a better grappler and everything I just mentioned, but minus 250, I would have put it at minus 180 or something. So it's kind of tough. I feel like, man, I want to have money on Kyler this week, but it's just a little juice. I'm really hoping that some people bet that down. Which, you could argue there's value on Paiva. Again, I don't like to bet on guys coming up, going to be the smaller guy, and fighting a guy with better wrestling and jiu-jitsu. That's a little tough. But, and a guy training over at MMA Lab, bunch of top guys. Kyler's a legit prospect. Minus 250 just seems a little wide for me. So I'm going to take Kyler. I'm going to take Kyler by second round sub. I think he's going to take him down, and by the end of the second, it's going to start to wear on Paiva, and he's going to find the submission. But, it's possible that, Paiva keep it on the feet, out volume him. I'm going to lean Phillips. Decision's possible too, but I'm going to go submission. Next up, we got Aspen Ladd taking on Macy Chiasson. And Aspen Ladd, had some injuries lately. Did beat Yana Kunitskaya year and a half ago. Knocked her down and then ground and pounded her. And then Jermaine Durandamy did starch her in about 15 seconds. She had a terrible weight cut for that. Aspen Ladd definitely has some trouble with the weight cuts. She did beat Sajara, who we were talking about earlier, Tonya Evinger, Lena Landsberg, Sajara actually twice. Decent wins on her resume. Even losing to Jermaine, especially getting knocked out by her, there's nothing super, Jermaine's a tough girl, and her striking, she hits like a truck, and we saw that weight cut was tough on Aspen, so no doubt that it affected her a lot. And in this fight, I do think she's going to have the grappling advantage, the wrestling advantage. Macy Chiasson is training over at Fortis MMA, which is a really legit gym. And you got to think they're going to give her a pretty decent game plan. But, she's fought some tough girls herself. Panny Kinzad, Gina Mazzani, Sarah Morais, Lena Landsberg, Maria Renault. Some pretty tough girls and had a decent amount of amateur fights, which is always good to see. But I just feel like Macy, she you could argue she's a live dog in this scenario because, I saw the line. I don't know if it's come down a little, but, I saw her at plus 165 earlier in the week, and I'm like, man, I thought about it. As much as I do think Aspen Ladd, it's her fight to lose, I thought about betting Macy, and I don't like betting I would put this at mid-level women's MMA as far as the UFC is concerned. Again, they're in the UFC, so they're great fighters. But still, I don't love betting on these type of fights. But if I'm going to do it, I like to do bigger underdogs. And I saw some value there because I do think Mace's going to have an advantage on the feet. Aspen hasn't been as active. You know, Macy might have a bit of a striking advantage here. In fact, I do think she does. Got the height and reach advantage. She could probably put her in the cage and work on her a little bit, just make it ugly. But overall, I'm gonna have to side with Aspen Ladd, mix in the takedowns, be able to take Chase on down. I do think it's a little tough, a little closer than even this line indicates. I mean, I would have put Aspen Ladd at like minus 140 or something like that, minus 130. So I am gonna have to go with Aspen Ladd by decision because Macy's super tough, but I do think the line is still a little wide for my liking. So give me Aspen Ladd by decision, but no play yet for me. Next up, we got Corey Sandhagen taking on TJ Dillashaw in the main event. And if you got this far, I appreciate you watching. Make sure you leave a like on the video, a sub, hit the bell. I appreciate y'all's support. Come watch the fights with me on Saturday. We always do that. But, without wasting any more time, 45 minutes. I try to keep this one as short as I can. It is what it is. Sometimes they go a little longer. But this is a great main event. We got TJ making his comeback off after a 2-year layoff due to an EPO drug test or test positive for EPO. It's a serious drug. Could definitely be responsible for some of his, typically that is. You don't see a lot of guys that carry that much muscle mass that can also go 5 hard rounds like he can. But, nobody's to know how long he's been using it. How much of an effect it had, even though, EPO is a very, it has an effect. It's going to have an effect. The question is how much of an effect. The question is how long was he taking it? Because, can TJ keep up that pace that he typically can without it? Is it going to be a mental thing too, where he doesn't get to have his shit for this fight? Is that going to bother him mentally? Because, you don't want to have any of those question marks when you're going against, a guy like Corey Sandhagen who, man, train over at Elevation. Obviously, TJ's done a lot of training there too. But, obviously, they're not training together right now. I really am a fan of Elevation Fight Team. Super legit. One of the best teams in the, in the world right now. And Corey, man, he's hot right now. He did have that Sterling loss, but other than that, it's been like highlight reels, man. Frankie Edgar knockout, the Marlon Moraes knockout, the Assunção Lineker, Batista fights, Ali Contra, Austin Arnett even, that was a really good finish. His UFC career has been super legit so far. And TJ Dillashaw, as much as I've never been a big fan and always had some skeptical, a little bit of skeptical hippo eyes on TJ, whether he was clean or not, and then I was not super shocked when I found out he wasn't. But, at the end of the day, he's accomplished a lot. As if you count people who have red flags on their name like that, asterisks on their name, he's one of the best bantamweights of all time. I still, he never busted for a drug test, I still put Dominic Cruz above him. Dominic Cruz, the number 1 bantamweight. But TJ, you could argue if you count people who have cheated and been caught, that is, because otherwise it'd be a lot of people. He's still probably in that top 3 bantamweights of all time. He's in his prime, man. He was really doing something, but in that last fight we saw him try to cut down to 125 and it did not work out for him. A lot of people said that stoppage was bullshit. Man, TJ was out. TJ was gonna take more damage, and you gotta think maybe that was just a weight cut, but still, is that gonna affect him going on? Is the 2-year layoff gonna affect him going on? He's 35, which is by no means old, even for a fighter, but at bantamweight it's a little up there. At these lower weight classes, it's all about speed. Everybody's technical. It's all about speed and reaction time and stuff, and Corey's been more active. Corey's in his prime. There's also the X factor of, there's the rumors that they used to, well, it's not a rumor that they used to train together and used to spar together, but the rumor that goes around that, everybody's been talking about this whole camp is Sandhagen apparently used to beat him up pretty well in their sparring sessions. So much that Dwayne had to stop them from sparring with each other anymore. You know, Apparently Corey used to give TJ the business, and especially if you know about how TJ trains, and he's an absolute definition of a go hard. He's the type of guy. I mean, if you know the Chris Holdworth story, there's some extremes, not so good stuff, but it's not a secret that TJ is the guy in the training camp who wants to win every exchange. He'll get heated. It's not a happy atmosphere, and if you're beating him up like that when he's going 100% on you, that's basically a fight. And that was a couple years ago when he was active. So it's like, you got to think now this is with the layoff. Now he doesn't have his juice. Now, Corey's only hit more of a stride. He's coming into his prime. TJ, you could argue he's exiting it. We haven't seen it yet. Especially, again, 35 at bantamweight. It's a little bit older. So, man, I'm going to lean Corey. I do think this line, again, this is the story of this card where I think you could argue this line is still a little wide. I don't like TJ Dillashaw, but, man, it's I'm not going to lie. There was a split second where I was plus 150 for TJ Dillashaw? Am I going to have to ride with the snake? Because it's it's still TJ Dillashaw at the end of the day. If they'd have made this matchup 2 or 3 years ago, you would not be, the lines would be flipped, and TJ would probably be minus 200. But, he has been knocked out. He has on a layoff. He did get popped for EPO. He's going to probably be getting drug tested a lot right now, so he's got to think he's going to have to be clean. I get that Corey should be the favorite. I'd have probably put out minus 130, minus 140, but I do think he's the rightful favorite. I think there might be a little value on TJ because of that. I'm hoping that the line comes down, and then I can maybe parlay Corey up. But I'm going to go with Corey. I'm going to go with Corey, 3rd round knockout, maybe 2nd round knockout. I think this is going to be a violent fight. TJ knows he's got to come back hard. Everybody's rooting against him. Corey does not want to let that title shot slip through his fingers. We got 5 rounds. Maybe TJ will look to mix it up and take Corey down a little. But you got to think it's probably going to play out mostly on the feet, especially with TJ, having to go 5 rounds, off a layoff, off not being able to take his EPO, where he might be thinking, damn, am I going to get tired? He's not going to want to waste a lot of energy at the wrestling. So probably going to be predominantly striking. TJ is going to have a power advantage, but Corey, a little bit. TJ is pretty fast too, but Corey, he's going to have the height and the reach, and he's a little bit more of a sniper, a little bit more accurate, a little bit more of that new age MMA striking. I'm going to go with Corey. I'm going to go Corey by knockout. I don't know the exact round yet, probably 2nd or 3rd, but this is a good main event, and I can't wait to watch it, man. It is my girlfriend's birthday this Saturday, so I'm going to be with her early, but come through on Twitch. I'll be back later on in the day. We'll watch the fights. Hit me up on Twitter. I'll be tweeting out my bets. I'm gonna do a short video showing y'all my bets. Otherwise you can just go on Twitter. I'll tweet them out. I appreciate you guys liking the video, watching the video, subscribing. I'm getting closer to 1,000. Let me check my count right now, because I think I was literally 1 away or 2 away or something. Yeah, I'm 1 away from 800 subs. So somebody be that lucky guy. I appreciate you. And then we're 200 away from 1,000. I'm dropping more content. I'm doing post-fight breakdowns now. I got some short videos planned. I was trying to wait till 1,000, but I'm starting to, figure out how I wanted to do it. So I'm probably just going to start a little early because I don't feel like waiting. I do appreciate you guys helping me out, though. Always supporting. Come through on Twitch, hang out for the fights, or just in general. I stream every day. And I got to get out of here now. It's been about almost an hour, but I appreciate you, and hope you enjoy the fights, make some money. Hopefully we make some money together, and until then, peace.